The first order of business is to showcase a larger gavel, more commensurate with the Lone Star State and the expectation of my citizens in Texas. Welcome. Good morning. Thank you to my colleagues for your time and your commitment, and especially thank you to our witnesses. My script here. Hearing will come to order. I yield myself such time as I may consume for an opening statement. This committee is charged with the fiduciary responsibility of resourcing the people's government and the fiscal trajectory of the United States of America. And right now, by any measure, we are well off track. We have convened this hearing today to sound the alarm for the American people and create a sense of urgency among our nation's leaders. The nation's fiscal outlook is rapidly deteriorating following a 2-year avalanche of new spending that added more than $6 trillion to our national debt and triggered painful historic levels of inflation on working families across the country. Our unprecedented, almost incomprehensible $31 trillion of national debt has eclipsed the size of our economy, the largest in the world. Over the next decade, according to the nonpartisan CBO, our annual deficits will double, our interest payments will triple, and for every dollar we borrow, 50 cents will go just to paying the interest on our debt. In just 5 years, interest payments alone will exceed what we spend on our entire national defense. The only other time in American history that our debt to GDP ratio has been this high was in the aftermath of World War II. We were able to recover from that because we had the will to reduce our spending and the runway to grow our economy back to a healthy balance sheet. Today, we're looking at a very different picture. Reckless spending and record inflation have left a trail of economic destruction for working families and small businesses in the form of shrinking paychecks, soaring interest rates, labor shortages, and a whole generation of Americans trapped in a cycle of poverty and government dependency. What makes this all the more disturbing is that we were warned. For the last 3 decades, we have known the structural challenges we face, from the largest generational retirement in the world to the rise in automatic spending consuming more of our revenues, and now runaway interest on the debt. And for the last 2 years, this administration, I believe, has just thrown gasoline on that fire with its unbridled spending. And the proposed budget of the president would do more of the same, if not double down. If we don't change course and change soon, sustained stagnation could very quickly give way to a debt crisis that threatens not only our economy, but our national security, with dwindling resources and dire choices putting our republic and our children's future at risk. Folks, it's well past time to think about the unthinkable, but it doesn't have to be this way. We can change it. Together we can change it. The fiscal state of our nation is certainly unsustainable, but not unfixable. That window, I believe, is closing. The president had the opportunity to set a new course and provide real leadership earlier this month with his budget proposal. Instead, his vision calls for the highest levels of sustained taxes, spending, and borrowing in the history of our country. Even by Washington standard, it is a budget binge of catastrophic proportions. In fact, even after trillions of dollars in new tax hikes on families, job creators, and energy producers, that still isn't nearly enough to make up for the vast and radical expansion of government that the president seeks. All 10 years of the spending proposed in the president's budget are at a quarter of our entire economy. All 10 years, a level that we haven't seen since the invasion of Normandy. And with his failed tax and spending policies constraining growth, our debt to GDP ratio will continue to deteriorate, hitting an unconscionable almost incalculable level of 220% or more by 2053. At the State of the Union, the President kept saying, finish the job. But I believe his plan doesn't even start the job of addressing the real challenges. And in my opinion, the greatest challenge of the 21st century, the prospect of a debt crisis. And his vision, in my opinion, is too radical, too reckless, and too disconnected to meet this moment. But we have to, members of this committee, Republican and Democrat, we must reverse course by stopping the spending spree, unlocking economic growth, and fixing our nation's finances before it's too late. As we look to lift our country out of this mess, several key principles emerge that must be included in any responsible plan, and these will certainly be the guiding principles for the budget that we will propose and open up for criticism and contrast and oversight. Number one, we must rein in wasteful, woke, and bloated bureaucracy and the out-of-control spending that created it. Number two, we must reduce unnecessary government burden and reestablish pro-growth policies that create jobs and promote prosperity for all Americans. We must end the era of dependency for able-bodied adults, encourage labor force participation, and restore the dignity of work in this country. We must stop the assault on U.S. energy production and unleash American energy dominance once again. And we must absolutely prioritize the first and most important job of the federal government, and that's the safety and security of the American people. With uncommon courage and common sense economic policies, we can stave off a debt crisis. We can strengthen America's balance sheet, and we can save the Union. That's our calling. That's our mission. May have different views on how to do that, but I hope that we can at least agree that this current path is completely unsustainable, and we can't continue down it for the love of country and our children's future. The longer we wait to start this work, the more drastic our choices will be. The more likely it becomes that future generations will be trapped in a broken economy with a bleak outlook at best. If we don't have a sense of urgency about the task before us, as I said, our children will not inherit the blessings of liberty and opportunity. Instead, they'll reap the whirlwind of an irreparable economic disaster in some form and at some point. Scary thing is, most people don't know when, but when it happens, it's hard to put it back. We've sounded the alarm, my friend and ranking member, and now we must answer the call to act. I now recognize my friend and colleague, the ranking member from Pennsylvania, Mr. Boyle, for his opening remarks.